Sam Hooper with the Institute for Justice here. I'm at the state capitol here in Austin, Texas. In exactly 1 week's time, the state legislature is going to gavel into session here for the 89th regular legislative session here in Texas. This only happens once every 2 years. So this place right behind me is going to get an awful lot busier as lobbyists, lawmakers, activists, curious members of the public, journalists, everyone's going to be rushing in here. There's a lot of work that's got to be done in 140 days, a lot of priorities that people are trying to pass, a lot of bills that other people are going to be trying to stop, quite frankly. At the Institute for Justice, we have a lot of priorities. One of the big priorities for us and for the state as a whole, and for a lot of the elected leaders here, is housing. Housing affordability, of course, is a huge issue right now, even though Texas is building, I think, more homes than anywhere else in the United States. We're doing the best, but it's still just not keeping pace with the influx, the population growth that's happening here. And that's putting a lot of pressure on house prices, making rents and, buying outright become too unreachable for a lot of people, which is becoming a political issue. Last session in 2023, there were a lot of bills that tried to tackle this problem by freeing up government restrictions, making it easier for property owners to build more types of housing other than single family homes, build more densely, build on smaller lots, all of this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of those bills didn't go anywhere. They encountered some opposition, they failed. So a lot of the problem was left unresolved when we reached sine die, which is the end of the legislative session last time round. Undeterred, a lot of people are coming back to try again. That certainly includes us at the Institute for Justice and a lot of our fellow travelers, people from all across the political spectrum recognize that housing is a big issue. It's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democratic issue, it's not even an independent issue. It's everyone, right? So we're working in a coalition with an organization called Texans for Reasonable Solutions. So, and that's a big kind of umbrella group. It includes a lot of different organizations. Institute for Justice is proud to work alongside them to try to get the legislature to pass a few different common sense reforms that would ease local restrictions on housing, make it easier to build. We've already seen a couple of bills filed, not the particular bills that IJ has been working on, but like I say, this is a big issue, so lots of people have been filing bills to do with housing. There's one area that was of interest last session that didn't go anywhere was accessory dwelling units. These go by different names. Some people call them granny flats, mother-in-law suites, casitas. It's all basically the same thing. It's either a little standalone unit on a lot, so it could be in the backyard, like a shed that's glorified and is suitable for living in. It could be a converted garage. It's part of the main building that already exists. So. But it's an accessory dwelling unit that someone else can live in as a standalone unit. Usually has, a kitchen, a bathroom, plumbing, air conditioning, and so on. Wanting to make it easier to build those. In a lot of cases at the moment, municipalities, unfortunately, they restrict the building of these accessory dwelling units, these casitas, make it too difficult to do. These can be great for all kinds of different people that don't necessarily need a full-size house. It could be good for young people taking their first step toward living independently. It could be great for elderly parents, elderly people, grandparents that don't want to go into a care home necessarily and want to still have family around. So there's all kinds of different people that could benefit from an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. So there are several bills that are looking to liberalize those, to make it more difficult for towns and municipalities to restrict the building of those ADUs. So there's Senate Bill 673 by Senator Brian Hughes that's focused specifically on these accessory dwelling units. There's also House Bill 878 by Representative Cody Vasut. So this one not only looks at accessory dwelling units, it looks at another issue that came up last session, is going to be big this session as well, and that's minimum lot size. So at the moment, the standard minimum lot size for a kind of single family home in Texas is around about 5,000 square feet. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending on the town. And that's quite big. So in Houston, which is quite famous for not having zoning per se, the minimum lot size is a lot smaller. It's around, I think, 1,400 square feet. And that's more than enough space to have, a townhome, something that's, perfectly comfortable for a family, but without having a big yard. And a lot of people don't even use their front yard or want one necessarily to take care of, right? So a smaller minimum lot size can be good for a lot of people. So this bill, House Bill 878, will reduce it would make the smallest minimum lot size, it would reduce it from around 5,000 to about 2,500 square feet. So not as small as Houston, but still an improvement. It would mean that you could build smaller lots, more dense housing for those that want it. It would only apply, this particular bill, to counties with more than 1 million people. So we're only looking at those particularly high population counties in the kind of Texas Golden Triangle, and it would only apply in municipalities with a population above 85,000 people. So I think this was crafted, to be very sensitive to people in more rural, more suburban, ex-urban places. So we're not going to crash in and interfere with, their particular living arrangements. So it's not tremendously ambitious in that respect. It's just focusing on particularly high demand areas. But again, that's where a lot of the problem is, right? That's where people want to live and where the pressure on housing is most acute. So in that sense, it's quite good. So that's House Bill 878 by Representative Vasut, looking at accessory dwelling units and minimum lot sizes. But in addition to these good bills that we're starting to see being filed by different people, there are also some bills that are a little bit more concerning, some bills that we might be wanting to potentially try and oppose or work on to see if we can understand why they were filed, whether there's anything we can do differently. One of them is House Bill 369. So this bill would actually kind of do the opposite of what I was talking about. It would specifically prohibit cities from allowing multifamily housing in areas that are zoned for single family. So some cities like Austin, where I am right now, that have tried to take steps to tackle the housing crisis by making it possible by right to build maybe a duplex, a triplex, an accessory dwelling unit, a townhouse in lots that were previously exclusively zoned for single family, white picket fence homes. Austin took steps to do that, and we're already starting to see the fruits of that, new types of housing being built that are lower cost, more affordable, more dense for people, which is good. This bill would put a stop to that. It would preempt that, so it would stop cities from liberalizing their land use, and it would basically enforce single family only, which is, quite, we think, a bit dictatorial, not very libertarian, dictating that people can only have one style of housing, saying that the single family home with the white picket fence sitting on a large lot isolated from everyone else is somehow the highest, best form of housing. We don't think that's necessarily the case. People want different housing, and a lot of the most beautiful, vibrant neighborhoods in the country, right? They're places that have different housing, and they're pleasant and charming to look at precisely because they're not all identical. You get some different land use, you get different people able to live together. Someone might want to live in a big single family house, as is absolutely their right. Other people might want to live in a duplex or a quadplex, that's a lot cheaper, that has the rent that they can afford, and then people that can live together, work together, and you have a fully functioning community. So this bill, unfortunately, that would basically mandate single family homes and stop other places from doing this, would kind of strike against that. So we think that's a little bit concerning. So we see that even though there are a lot of bills that are trying to tackle the housing crisis, trying to liberalize land use, for every one of those, we also have some bills, unfortunately, that we're going to have to look to defend against and try to oppose, because they're going in the opposite direction. They're doing the opposite thing. So in 1 week's time, when everything gavels into session, there's a few days of frantic activity, and then things tend to go quiet for a bit. So everyone starts looking at trying to refine their bills, to build support, to try and understand when their bills can get a committee hearing. There can't actually be any votes taken for the first few weeks of session, so there's a lot of background work that goes on, and that's some of the time when we at the Institute for Justice and our allies will be busiest, trying to build support for some of our bills, not just on housing, but on some other issues as well. So this video is getting a bit long now, but I wanted to keep you up to date on some of this stuff around housing. We're hoping to have a big meeting with our coalition next week to do some more strategizing on the bills that we're looking to advance specifically to liberalize land use, make it easier to build housing. So I'll give you an update after that meeting, let you know what's happening. And if there are more bills filed on housing, as inevitably there will be, it's a big issue, I'll let you know about those as well. I'll let you know what's in them, whether we think they're good, whether we think there's room for improvement, or whether we think they need to be opposed. But as always, this is Sam Hooper, the Institute for Justice, reporting from outside the state capitol here in Austin, Texas. Thanks for following.